Coming up, on this week's IndigiPolitics, we discuss potential vice presidential picks, and an attorney shares tips for graduates who want to acknowledge their cultural identity on the stage. Plus, an Indigenous actor and singer goes beyond the big screen to advocate for men's health. Join us for those interviews on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amirawahopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. The Bureau of Land Management has released its plan to manage 13.3 million acres of public lands in central and northern Alaska. The Central Yukon Resource Management Plan proposes land expansion, fish and wildlife protection, and the development of recreational areas, among other things. The guide reflects public input collected over more than a decade and emphasizes co-stewardship collaborations with Alaska Native tribes, as well as incorporates Indigenous knowledge into its proposals. A record of decision for the plan will be issued later this year. We head now to Washington State, where the Puyallup tribe makes a big investment in a green energy solution for the world and for the economic security at home. Our Stuart Huntington has more.
5 years ago, the Puyallup tribe of Indians resolved to fight global warming and help create a carbon-neutral economy. Today, they're putting their money behind those words as lead investor in a company building utility-scale batteries to store power from green sources.
So first and foremost, it's about the environmental protection. It's about getting rid of fossil fuels. It's sustainable. So it checks that box. And then the second box, which is equally important, is there's a business case for it with the potential market in the billions. And then thirdly, it is fits with what we're able to do right now.
The tribe owns waterfront property in Tacoma and operates a shipping container modification company. Its new partner, Portland-based SkipTech, aims to make the batteries out of, well, shipping containers.
I am incredibly excited that we have the Puyallup tribe as our partners in doing this. They are well aligned with us in terms of our joint vision of what we want to do, of making equitable, reliable, and environmentally friendly sources of power.
The core so-called flow technology behind the batteries is decades old, but SkipTech thinks it has fixed a flaw.
Our specific flow battery that we're using was first developed in 1980. So our specific technology that we at Skip have developed is actually a replacement for a flaw that was at the heart of that battery.
The tribe agrees.
They have a product in development where they can essentially turn containers into liquid batteries to store energy. And definitely aligned with what we're trying to do, because it's one about the environment, it's sustainable, and it also has a serious business case for it.
The new partners hope to have a working prototype built by the end of the year. Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
President Joe Biden has nominated Dana Jackson to serve as a federal judge in the United States District Court for the District of Montana. Jackson is from the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, where she currently serves as a tribal attorney. If confirmed by the U.S. Senate, Jackson would be the first Native American, Alaska Native, or Native Hawaiian person to serve as a federal judge in Montana. It would also make her the fifth active Native American federal district court judge in the country. A new facility in Seattle will house Native American adults experiencing chronic homelessness. The Sacred Medicine House will open 120 apartment units to single adults and adult couples without kids. Built by the Chief Seattle Club, a Native-led housing and human services agency, the goal is to end homelessness in urban King County, where Native Americans account for up to 15% of the homeless population. The housing site will staff a full-time cultural mental health worker, offer counseling services and recreational activities, as well as provide job assistance and other support programs. In Nevada, an endangered wildflower poses challenges for what could become the third lithium mine in the U.S. Ryolet Ridge holds one of the largest known lithium and boron deposits and will help accelerate key materials for electric vehicles. This mine threatens Team's buckwheat, a yellow and cream-colored flower. It made the endangered species list in 2022, citing mining as the biggest threat to its survival. The Center for Biological Diversity says the current plan could violate the Endangered Species Act and, if approved, would be challenged. Well, Oklahoma City Thunder basketball player Lindy Waters III has been named a finalist for the NBA Social Justice Champion Award. The Kiowa and Cherokee citizen has made incredible efforts through his foundation and has elevated Native basketball tournaments that take place in Oklahoma. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Trophy and the NBA Social Justice Champion recognizes players who are driving change, inspiring others to reflect on injustice and take collective actions in their communities. The winner will be announced sometime during the 2024 NBA playoffs.
This year's presidential election is essentially a repeat of 4 years ago. A key difference is who former President Donald Trump will select as his vice president, and what is Robert F. Kennedy's impact on Trump's voter base. Here to talk more about that is ICT regular contributor John Tsuda. He's a principal at Navigators Global on this week's IndigiPolitics. Welcome back to the newscast, John.
Thanks for having me again. It's always great to chat with you.
So the first question that I have is, when do presidential candidates normally announce their vice president?
Well, they each follow sort of their own trend, and often has to do with the politics in that particular year, that particular campaign. In a campaign where the candidate is not either an incumbent or hasn't run before, they usually wait until sometime around the convention so that it sort of builds this excitement going into the convention and then launching out of it for sort of the final months of the campaign. In this case, we essentially have two incumbents, so it's more unusual than it's been in quite a long time. So I suspect that former President Trump, candidate Trump, will probably pick one before the convention, maybe well before the convention, because it doesn't seem to have the same sort of resonance as an unknown candidate running for the first time. He's well known, and in many ways, the vice president pick in this campaign for him will not be viewed so much as adding a voter base or some other element that he doesn't already have tapped into. They're sort of more just, more like a vice presidential running mate who's already, been there before, an incumbent in a sense, so already well known, et cetera. So very different than it often is in a campaign for the non-current incumbent.
And who are some of the people that are being discussed?
Well, interesting, there's a wide roster, and sort of similar to his days on reality TV, former President Trump, likes to have a lot of folks in play. And so I think that adds a little bit to the sort of the drama of it. But it also keeps an interest in his voter base, et cetera. So again, the choice I think looked at is not looking necessarily to fill in some perceived gap, in his voter base or something. So, looking around, you might look at, interestingly, folks who previously were not favorites of his, like Marco Rubio in Florida. But from news accounts, anyways, it would appear that Mr. Rubio has sort of found favor again and is saying things that the former president thinks will maybe enhance his message. So there's a few folks like that. Interestingly, there are some candidates from states that you wouldn't normally look to in a normal campaign, like in the Dakotas, both South Dakota and North Dakota. They're not. Those are not states generally thought of as swaying the election one way or the other. They're sort of firmly in the Trump camp as states go. They're not. There's not a lot of electoral votes there. So that's not normally where you look. But again, different time, different campaign. There's certainly an element to having a woman as a running mate, and so there's been a lot of discussion about the governor of South Dakota, but there's also been a lot of attention to the governor of North Dakota, Mr. Burgum, and to the extent that Indian country is interested, I would say Mr. Burgum has really developed a lot better relationship with the tribes in North Dakota than the governor in South Dakota. So that would be an interesting pick. There may be some sort of melding of the minds there too. Both he and former President Trump are businessmen, so there's some similarities possibly in how they look, and that may be part of what President Trump likes in what Mr. Burgum is saying. There's also a strong interest in energy policy for the country, and so I think those are elements that sort of mesh with him. So again, the notion being not so much bringing a voter base, but bringing a consistent message that will help amplify the message of candidate Trump.
There's been some reporting about Robert F. Kennedy's campaign having an impact on Trump's voter base. What's your take on this?
I actually think it's probably a bigger problem for President Biden. If you look at the platform that Mr. Kennedy has put forward, in some ways he is really true to his uncle, John F. Kennedy, and a lot of his platform basis, and that's part of the appeal he's making. That appeal would really look to peel off those sort of moderate Democrat voters that Mr. Biden really, really has to keep in the camp. I know a lot of attention is paid to young and progressive voters, and certainly he'll need those to get over the top. But if he were to lose that moderate vote to a third-party candidate, that would probably doom his campaign. So you look specifically things like border policy. Mr. Kennedy, as a candidate, says that he would like to first, take care of the border, address the illegal immigration, and then look to do something like comprehensive immigration reform, change immigration laws, et cetera. That sort of sounds to me something that would appeal to your moderate, middle-of-the-road Democrat. They are concerned about the chaos at the border, but they don't want an unfair system. They perceive it as unfair now, so looking forward to a new system would be something that might appeal to those kind of voters. And that's just one example, I think, in his platform.
And do you think that the TikTok ban will have an impact on young voter engagement?
That's a really good question. I don't know that it will impact their engagement as far as their being for one candidate or another. But the real question, and this is the concern I think that has been exhibited at Washington, D.C., is how TikTok itself could influence outcomes by trying to sway voter opinion one way or the other instead of just presenting sort of candidate messages, et cetera, as normal media does. So I think that, again, not so much to sway the voter itself, but to sort of sway voter thinking. And that's a concern that has really been exhibited here in Washington, D.C. with the recent law passed.
Well, that's all the time that we have, John. Thank you again for being on the newscast.
Thank you.
Languages are among our most valued resources. Ensuring that they are preserved and taught is important in Indigenous communities and here at ICT. Today, we're continuing our Language Break segment, which features Native speakers from across Turtle Island sharing their beautiful and bold words and phrases. This week, we bring you the Hawaiian language from Kumukau'i Peralto and music from Kalani Pea.
E nā kini o ka aina e ala mai.
Mai maka'u I ka hana, maka'u I ka moloa. Mai maka'u I ka hana, maka'u I ka moloa. Don't be lazy. Mai maka'u I ka hana, maka'u I ka moloa. Don't fear work, fear laziness.
I ka lave, I ka pono, paion.
The spring season means students of all ages will soon walk across stages across America after completing long academic journeys. We have some tips for those Native American students wanting to show up on graduation day with their cultural identity on display. Whether it's walking across the stage for a high school, college, or even pre-K graduation, celebrations will soon kick off across the country. For Native students, graduation season is increasingly turning into a fashion show of sorts, with many using the moment to showcase their cultural identity by dressing traditionally, some wearing beaded graduation caps or eagle feathers. This season should be an exciting time for all involved, but that isn't always the case. The Native American Rights Fund says in recent years they've heard more and more stories where Native students were questioned for wearing regalia. Last year in Mississippi, Cheyenne River Sioux citizen Zuri Wilson wanted to wear an eagle feather on her high school graduation cap, but was told she couldn't because it was outside of her district's dress code. After an in-person visit to the school board and letters of support from prominent legal organizations, she won her fight, finally able to wear her cultural items proudly.
I think anything in the school realm right now can feel contentious.
I spoke to NARF staff attorney Morgan Saunders to ask how to make graduation day run smooth. First, she says, is to decide exactly what you are interested in wearing. Then look into graduation-specific policies at your school. If you have any questions about it, reach out to a guidance counselor or advisor.
The earlier that you can get a clear answer on what is or isn't allowed at your school, the earlier you can take steps to address any concerns that you have and potentially, try to get an exception if an exception is needed.
Tribal leaders can play a role, too, by issuing public statements explaining the significance of their students dressing in regalia or by visiting a local school board meeting.
Also, providing, any relevant information, especially, if there is a state law on point, if the tribe, perhaps is giving out tribal honor cords or stoles or, gifting eagle feathers to students.
If you live in these 14 states, there are state laws already on the books protecting Native students from wearing regalia in some way. One of the states not on the list, New York, home to many tribal nations. College senior Yananui Logan says it won't stop her from representing her background when she graduates from Cornell University this spring. If anything, she tells me, she was more concerned about another important detail.
I actually inquired about my graduation regalia last June because I know a lot of, designers, like either their orders fill up or they can't handle a lot. So I had asked a long time ago.
Logan mentioned, however, that things may be different for the class of 2024, a cohort that has already gotten the short end of the stick because their 2020 graduations were either outright canceled or moved virtually due to COVID.
We're really humble people, but we take our celebrations with a lot of pride, I find. And I think that you want to be proud, not just of what you accomplished in these academic spaces, but also what you accomplished as a Native person. And I think you can only really show that with a lot of times with your traditional regalia or your traditional wear.
And some more tips here. If you are a Native student who was denied from wearing traditional regalia at your graduation, experts encourage reaching out to your tribal nation or to the Native American Rights Fund for help. We'll be right back. Actor and singer Boo Boo Stewart has teamed up with Movember to raise awareness for Native men's mental health and suicide prevention. ICT's Daniel Herrera Carbajal talked with him about his work and this collaboration.
Boo Boo, welcome to the ICT Newscast. You've been on shows like Descendants and Good Trouble and on movies like X-Men. What has your journey been like as an actor?
Ooh, the journey. It's been so interesting. As I feel like all like artist journeys are. Uh, it's I grew up in the business. My dad is an actor and a stunt coordinator. So I would grow up. When I was a baby, I'd be on sets all the time. I would even ask to like miss school to like go hang out on set because I just really liked being on set. I wasn't doing anything. I just liked being there. Um, that grew into me becoming a self-proclaimed like cinephile. I love watching movies. I used to watch 2 movies a day at least. Um, Once I saw Heath Ledger play the Joker in The Dark Knight, that kind of like it just blew my mind. Um, it reminded me of when I was even younger, I used to want to be a pro skate or pro BMXer because I used to see the Thrasher magazines and they said, "Oh, this is what I want to do," you know. But when I saw that performance, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I want to do," and I just loved movies so much. And yeah, I was doing music first, and then that turned into film. Um, and it's interesting, like even booking X-Men came from a small movie I had done when I was 16, the director saw. So it's been like some parts you audition for, sometimes you're just surprised, like, what the, how did you even know about that movie? And like, why would you want me to play this other role? And it's been a roller coaster of just adventure, I guess.
Your music project, That Band Honey, just released a new song, Thinking About You. Can you talk me through the music making process and what the song's about?
Yeah, the inspiration behind it, it's definitely a reflection piece after a breakup of a relationship, you know. We always, after you break up, it's just the worst time of anyone's life. And yeah, just looking back on that relationship, all the things you didn't say, all the things you said, um, all the things you shouldn't have said. And then writing the song was, yeah, it's really fun. The band consists of myself and my 3 best friends. So it's just really fun being able to like go to work and to the studio with your friends. It's always a a mini party, and we're just having a good time and just having a blast with each other. And but then you get deep. You have to explore the vulnerable sides to make good music and to make music that connects with people. I hear a lot of music that sounds fun and good, but it doesn't make me feel anything. I think music can do both. It can be fun, but the lyrics should also hit a little deep and make you feel something more than just like a groovy beat, you know.
You've teamed up with Movember in support of men's mental health awareness and suicide prevention, specifically for Native American men. What called you to do this?
You know, it's something that I've actually thought about for a long time, this issue, because of, my background and with the roles I've played and having an influence. Um, I have had the opportunity to visit several reservations across the country, to do speeches at the reservations. And, even on a surface level, I could see that there were issues that I could see at each reservation that were very similar. This isn't really being talked about as much as it should be, you know. So when I got the email, when I heard about what Movember was doing, I instantly was like, yes. Like I've always done charitable work, but I haven't done it in a while, sadly. But when I saw this, I was instantly, it really felt like something that I resonated with, as I want to do things that I really, really agree with, really support, really resonate with. I can understand the whole picture of, not just like throwing my name out there and being like, yeah, I support this, you know. And this is something that I really was like, yes, I've thought about this for a while, and it just so happens that they're doing this right now, and I want to be a part of spreading the word.
We know Indigenous men commit suicide at almost twice the rate of non Indigenous men. Why do you think it's so important that we talk about these disparities?
I think it's important because it's something that we as Americans, in our past, the history of us, have done to a certain people, and this is the repercussions. You know what I mean? This is generational trauma. This is our history, and it's so easily, for some reason, swept under the rug. And that's not okay. So we have to deal with the repercussions of what we've done to a certain set of people. And it's just not okay. And we can now make a difference. We can make a change with the young people. The way our mindsets are, it's different.
And what do you hope is achieved with this awareness?
Man, I hope that we can really fix the root of the issue. Something that I'm proud of to say is that Movember is, this is a 7-year investment. It's an investment of $1.56 million over the course of 7 years. So something like this issue, it's not going to be fixed overnight. Right? That's not how the people's minds work. This is going to take time. It's going to take the community coming together, and that's what Movember's doing. They're going to be listening to the communities and seeing what solutions will best fit each community. That's something I think is really important here. If you or anybody watching this knows, if you're a part of a community that you want to register your community, go to movember.com/about/funding, because you can literally register your community. And the way they're going about is trying to get the young men, the boys, the older guys, everybody back into the culture, the spirituality, the community of it all. And that's the root of the issue. So that takes time. But I'm glad that they're attacking it now.
Boo Boo Stewart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.